Okay, let's dive into this. The automotive world in 2025, well, it's been thrown a real curveball.
Hmm.
New tariffs are here, and we're, already seeing some pretty big ripples, especially for the auto industry itself. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it just buying a car or maybe even getting repairs. It could start feeling quite different and soon.
And what's really striking is just how fast and how big this change is.
Right.
We're talking brand new 25% tariffs
Yeah.
on imported cars, imported parts. And they just landed really April, May.
Wow, so really recent.
Yeah, practically overnight in
Mm.
policy terms.
Mm.
And, these U.S. moves, they haven't happened in a vacuum. Other countries are responding, some with their own tariffs. So it's definitely a global thing now.
Exactly. It's not like a tiny tweak to the system. We're seeing a definite jump in the average U.S. tariff rate just this year.
For sure.
And like you said, the whole global trade picture is reacting. So for this deep dive, we really want to focus on what these new tariffs actually mean, especially for the automotive sector, because it's such a clear example. We'll be pulling from some really useful analysis, including some great insights from Mesh Digital, plus other expert takes.
Yeah, pooling that knowledge.
Exactly. To give you, our listener, a clear picture of what's happening, and crucially, some of those key strategic thoughts as, everyone tries to navigate this.
Right.
The goal isn't to drown you in numbers, but really pull out the key takeaways, the strategic angles you need to be aware of.
And that strategic focus is just so vital right now. It's not enough to just react.
No.
Companies need to be thinking ahead, building real resilience into how they operate in this, well, let's face it, pretty unpredictable trade environment.
Okay, so let's jump into those immediate effects then. What really jumped out at you first in terms of how the auto industry reacted right off the bat?
Well, one of the first clear signals was a definite spike in car sales back in March.
Ah, interesting. So people rushing to buy before prices went up?
Seems logical, right? Consumers heard tariffs are coming, prices might increase, so they likely thought, better buy now.
Makes sense.
But, this is important, the data suggests that was probably just a short-term bump.
Right, because the overall forecasts are already shifting, aren't they?
Exactly. Those full-year sales predictions for new cars, they've been lowered.
Okay. And it's not just the cars made overseas that might get more expensive.
No, and that's a really key thing for people to understand. Even cars assembled right here in the U.S., they could still see costs go up.
Because of the parts?
Precisely. Those new tariffs hit imported auto parts, too. So the cost of building that car, even domestically, could increase. We're talking potentially significant extra cost per vehicle.
Which naturally probably gets passed on to the buyer, right?
Most likely, yeah.
And it sounds like folks looking for maybe more affordable options, say under $40,000,
Sure.
or cars with lots of imported bits, they'll feel it the most.
That seems to be the consensus, yes. We could be seeing price jumps, maybe 10, 15% for some vehicles directly hit, and maybe to more general increase, perhaps at least 5% across the board as costs ripple through. That really impacts affordability.
No kidding. And what about the automakers themselves, the big domestic names?
Oh, the potential hit there is substantial. You look at companies like GM or Ford, the projections are talking billions, potentially, wiped off profits just because of these tariffs.
Billions.
Yeah, GM, maybe $4 or $5 billion profit reduction. Ford, looking at around $1.5 billion net hit, maybe $2.5 billion gross. One major player even suspended its financial outlook entirely.
That really shows the level of uncertainty, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The estimated average tariff cost just per imported vehicle for these guys is something like over $8,600. And for imported parts, almost $5,000 on average. These are big numbers.
And I heard something about potentially getting hit twice, like double tariffs.
Yeah, that's another layer of complexity. If a car is, say, assembled abroad, but it also uses a lot of parts sourced from other non-U.S. countries, it could potentially face tariffs at multiple stages.
Yeah.
Maybe up to 50% of the vehicle's value in tariffs in some scenarios.
Yeah.
It really complicates things.
So what are they doing? Are manufacturers just sitting back?
Oh, definitely not. We're already seeing them scrambling, really, recalibrating operations, trying to reposition inventory, rethinking their sourcing, actively adjusting.
Makes sense.
There have even been some reports like Stellantis apparently pausing some production lines temporarily while they figure things out.
So, okay, immediate chaos, adjustments happening. What about the longer view? What strategic responses are starting to emerge? How do companies build that resilience you mentioned?
Well, that Mesh Digital Insights piece you mentioned offers a really interesting framework, a 5-pillar strategy, heavily emphasizing a digital approach.
Okay.
Pillar 1 is about deep tariff impact assessments. really digging into their supply chains, figuring out exactly where the vulnerabilities lie.
Got it. Know your exposure first.
Exactly. Then dynamic scenario planning.
Yeah.
Because things are changing so fast, you can't just have one static plan. You need to model different possibilities, different tariff levels, different responses.
That makes total sense. A fixed plan feels useless right now.
It really does. Their other pillars focus on agile operating models, making the company itself more flexible, then tariff-responsive pricing.
Meaning passing some costs on.
Well, yes, figuring out how to adjust pricing strategically, because just absorbing everything probably isn't feasible for most. And finally, they suggest looking at aftermarket service innovation.
Finding revenue streams less tied to new vehicle imports.
Potentially, yeah. Areas that might be less directly impacted by these specific import duties.
Now, Mesh Digital also talks about something called a digital nerve center. What
Yeah.
exactly is that? Sounds high-tech.
Think of it less like a traditional command room and more like a central digitally connected hub.
Okay.
It's designed to pull in real-time data from everywhere. Tariff changes, supplier issues, policy updates, market reactions.
So everyone sees the same picture, quickly.
That's the idea. It allows different teams across the company to see the immediate effects on their area and react much faster, much more cohesively. It's about enabling that agile decision-making they talk about.
So it's really about that real-time visibility and the ability to pivot quickly based on solid data.
Precisely. And you see this theme echoed elsewhere, too, this idea of building resilience right into the core strategy. It's not just about weathering this specific tariff storm.
Right. It's broader.
It's about identifying those longer-term trends that cause disruption, whether it's trade, tech, or something else, and building buffers, financial, operational, digital, organizational.
And scenario planning keeps coming up. It seems like a universally recommended tool right now.
Absolutely essential. You have to think through the potential ripple effects. How does this tariff impact my suppliers, my customers, my investment plans for next year?
It's not just the immediate price tag.
Not at all. It's the whole value chain. Understanding that helps businesses decide on their strategic posture. Do we accelerate in areas less affected? Do we try to grab market share from struggling rivals? Do we need a serious cost reset? Or maybe even, cut back in certain areas?
Tough choices. On a more immediate tactical level, what are some of the first things automakers are likely doing, right now?
First off, quantifying the damage. Getting a crystal clear number on their financial exposure. How much will this actually cost us?
Okay.
Then, managing inventory. Especially stuff sitting in warehouses or ports that are now in high-risk tariff zones. You don't want goods stuck or suddenly much more expensive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And definitely updating their go-to-market plans. Tracing, promotions, how they position vehicles, all that needs a fresh look. Fast.
And looking beyond the immediate firefighting, these can't just be Band-Aid solutions, surely.
No, absolutely not. The longer game involves, potentially, a major rethink of production and sourcing.
Like where they build things.
Exactly. Diversifying suppliers, maybe nearshoring or reshoring some production, shifting focus to regions with better trade deals. It's a huge undertaking. Plus beefing up their own internal expertise on trade compliance. And even reviewing partnerships. Are our current alliances still the right ones in this new world? The whole global auto supply web is likely being redrawn.
Wow. It really sounds like data, analytics, automation, these things become even more critical now for making those quick adjustments, maybe even seeing trouble coming.
Couldn't agree more. Things like customer experience platforms.
Yeah.
They give you that real-time customer and inventory data.
So you can tweak marketing, manage stock levels on the fly.
Precisely. It helps shift companies from just reacting after the fact to being more proactive, more predictive. Using data to navigate, that's going to be a huge advantage.
Okay, so pulling this all together, it's undeniable these new tariffs are a massive shift for the auto industry. They're creating immediate financial headaches, forcing deep operational reviews from supply chains right down to the sticker price.
Yeah, it's hitting everywhere.
And the way forward seems to be about strategy, about being data-driven, and really focusing on building that operational muscle, that resilience, to handle this ongoing uncertainty.
That really sums it up. It's a fluid situation. But the companies that are agile, that have that strategic foresight, they're the ones most likely to navigate this successfully, maybe even find opportunities in it.
Well, this has been hopefully a really clear snapshot for you, our listeners, of the current tariff situation and how it's playing out in the auto world right now.
Yeah, lots to track.
Definitely. So here's a final thought to leave you with. We focused on automotive, but given how interconnected everything is globally,
Hmm.
how might these kinds of trade complexities and disruptions we're seeing here start to ripple out, or maybe even foreshadow bigger shifts in other industries down the line, ones we haven't even discussed today?
That's a great question. The knock-on effects.
Exactly. Something to mull over as we all adjust to this evolving global trade picture.